Want to play hide and clap?
To start with, thank you guys so much for coming on here. As you both know, I'm a huge fan of your guys' work, and I have a lot of friends who are huge fans of your work. And we want to welcome you to Rad Country, which is our new podcast. We're bringing you guys on so that we can make people more aware of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes of these huge blockbuster movies that you guys have been a part of and started out, created. I won't go through the long list. I'm going to let you guys kind of tell us what you've been a part of. And Justin has done a lot of research the past few days, getting caught up on all of your movies that you guys have been a part of.
Yes. I've lost so much sleep trying to do research and binge watch and all of that. So,
oh man, it's
wow.
It's a crazy world to start digging into. I'll tell you that. That's it's fun though. It's fun.
Oh, so much fun.
Yeah, to have something new to binge is awesome. It's just like,
especially those because some of those movies keep you up at night anyway, regardless. So
hey, really quick to share, a buddy of mine who lives literally across the street, a neighbor, sent me a picture yesterday, and this happens to Chad and I all the time. What do you guys think of this? And it's a house in Santa Monica that some renters were at, where the TV kept going on and off. They walk down the hallway and walk into a really chilled 2 feet of the hallway, crazy noises. And he sent me a picture, and I'll send it to you guys. But he and his wife were sitting inside, and he just went, what the heck? And he takes his picture out through a balcony, and it reflects behind them this crazy image of it. Looks like somebody with long, straggly hair, and the eyes are kind of shifted on the face. I mean, it's a being. It's a definite spirit.
Really?
And go, hey, you want to go into that house? You want to go in there with me? I'm like, why would I do that?
Yeah, I've got a perfectly good house over here that's not haunted.
I could take pictures without that.
I mean, no,
so Justin, and all your research, which thank you, I'm very flattered that you spent the time to do that. But this is like welcome to our world. This happens almost daily or weekly of things coming our way because people, you write so many of these kind of movies. This must really, really interest you. And we're like, I mean, you can't tell Carey and I that the supernatural doesn't exist. We've just been witness to it. So yes, it 100% exists. There are demons, there are angels, we could go into it forever, but it's an interesting world that we've ventured into, and we can get into how and why and what it is, but it's Carey, who sent you that? I didn't know about that.
That was David Jasby.
Oh my God.
He's a college professor at UCLA.
Yeah.
And he loves talking about this world, but he's like, oh my God. I'm like, I should share some stuff back to you.
Anyway, you guys get going. We could just get into the weeds here. So how do we help you and your listeners and
So I guess whenever I started out a long time ago, just watching movies in general, I wanted to take it back to 1986, where you guys are in a movie called Rad, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. We'll never live that down, ever.
Oh, sorry. Recently I was like on Facebook just kind of scrolling through, and somebody had posted, I cannot find that DVD anywhere. And so I guess they never released it for DVD. And then a company called something got a 4K HD version of it and started selling it, but they sold out like as fast as they had made like 200, 300 copies. So we're talking like cult classic now. Yeah. At that point, that movie came out about the same time as Gleaming in the Cube came out too. Mm-hmm. And I felt like Gleaming the Cube was what I grew up on, but I remember going to the store, renting Rad on VHS and watching it, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I remembered you guys, and it's funny because as life went on, then we crossed paths, and here we are. But I just was curious, like your guys' experience as Rex and Rod Reynolds in that movie. How did that kind of open up the doors for you in the film side of things?
It was the most. Let me just interject really quickly. It was the director of that film was a guy named Hal Needham, and Hal Needham started the Stunt Association for the film industry. So he's a huge stunt man, and he was partners with Burt Reynolds in Smokey and the Bandit car. They had a race car.
The NASCAR was their car.
NASCAR, and he did all the Burt Reynolds movies. And Carey and I, as young actors in Hollywood, it was the first time we went into an audition into Hal's office, and he had 2 BMX bikes sitting in the corner of his office. And he goes, have you read the script? And we read the script, and yeah, did you like it? Yeah, we like it a lot. Yeah, you think you can play these guys? Yeah, I really think we can. He goes, can you guys go sit on those bikes over in the corner of the office? And I went, okay, that's a strange request, but yes, we'll go sit on the bikes. Not the
strangest, though.
No, and so we sat on the bikes. He goes, yeah, you look good. Yeah, come on up to Canada next Friday. And we went, we have the job? And he goes, yeah, you got the job. I'm the director. I hire you. I just hired you. You have the job. And so we're like, we didn't say a line. We didn't audition. We didn't do anything that you were just used to. But it ended up being just a great experience. You filmed up in Cochrane, which is just outside of Calgary, Alberta. We're up there for, I don't know what, Carey, 6-7 weeks. And we were with Bart Connor, as you know, who had just won the gold medal as a U.S. Olympian. He was a gymnast, the lead guy. And anyway, it was great. Lori Loughlin, full circle. Here we go. You know, she was starring in that movie. But it was a really great experience. The thing that made us really aware of how culty films can get is the amount of people. I mean, Carey and I, that was so many years ago. And Carey and I still get stopped and asked, wow, are you one of the Reynolds from Rad? And there are always these kids like in their early 30s, you know, they grew up and they say, I watched your movie 500 times every day. And you know, every little detail, it's like Rocky Horror Picture Show in the BMX biking world. And then, I don't know, you know, Talia Shire was the producer, and Talia was Rocky Balboa's wife, you know, in all the Rocky movies, and she and her husband. And we just literally, my wife and I were watching something the other night, and it came across, you know, films to watch, and Rad is on like Apple TV now. Like you can rent it. And of course,
you know what's crazy, you guys, is we didn't know, honestly, when we shot that movie, and then had, you know, no idea of the cult font, never, ever, for years, until what Chad said, people started stopping us going, wait, were you guys the Reynolds? Oh my God, that was such an amazing movie. You know, it changed my life. We're like, a bike movie changed your life? How was it? It was like, but it was a great underdog story, you know?
Yeah,
it was a great underdog story. And you saw never seen before stunts on BMX bikes, you know, which was different. It was really funny because the slope hell track was, that whole thing was built in Calgary to shoot there. And all of those professional BMX kids, none of them were brave enough to go down the face of that track. Like nobody looked at it and went, oh man, I'm going to go get it. And then this young kid, one of the youngest kids, had an idea, and he put a ladder, a big ladder against it, like brought it up maybe halfway up, put his bike over his shoulder, and then leaned against the wall, and then dropped into it halfway down, because it had a big dip at the bottom. Everybody thought they were just going to face plant right into the bottom, and he goes off. And then he goes right away, right to the top of the track. And everybody else is watching this little kid.
He's like 11 years old. This kid was just
drop down, and Hal Needham, I think Hal threw him like a couple $100 extra bonus, you know, bonus dollars for doing it. And then you couldn't get him off that. Those kids just, oh my God, they kept going down it and down it. But he would always say, Hal would go, all right, I need somebody to bump into, or Rod and Rex are going to bump into somebody in the race, and we're going to knock them into the river. Who wants to make an extra $100? The hands go up, go in the river, you know. So it was fun. It was a fun experience. Chad and I, our families are Canadian. Our parents are from Canada. So in Calgary, we had family. So when we went up there and we're shooting, we're interacting with our cousins in the movie, in one of the off the side in one of the dance sequences. But it was a great experience. But
we've never lived that dance sequence down either. That's just been.
But
that's. That's,
Yeah,
my kids hit the line. Never mind. My kids just never let me forget that story. It's like in those really cool LA outfits.
But you know what, Nick,
Yeah.
to like you had asked a question about the influence of that. And Chad and I, early in our career, I mean, we started writing movies when we were 16 years old. And when we came to Los Angeles, we went to UCLA and we pursued both careers at the same time, acting and writing. And the acting thing was great. We did every freaking twin role you could imagine that came up, which was awesome. And then Chad and I said, we're a little sick of being labeled as twins. Let's pursue our own acting careers. And then we never worked.
That was a big mistake.
We had our gimmick as twins, and that was it. But, I would say we parceled out some different jobs at different times. But there just came a crossroads in our life where we said, okay, we got to choose. We're not going to do both, and we just decided, okay, we're just going to focus on the writing, and because we have way more control of that, as much writing as you want to put in is what you can get back, and acting, you're waiting for jobs that writers create. So why not do that?
Yeah,
So it turned out to be a better choice, I think.
I think so. But you still have the great rad story to always.
Oh my God.
No, that's awesome. So, hey,
Go ahead. Dustin.
go ahead. So no, I was just going to dig into your writing process. I think that's part is super fascinating to me. Do you guys always write together? Is this something that you do separate and then, kind of come together after that?
It starts off where Carey and I, pre-COVID, of course, although we've been together through this whole process, we created these little bubbles of our families that have been quarantined, so we're not worried about any sort of infection or anything. But Carey and I would get together, come up with a pitch, like we're about to go out with a pitch for a movie that we really want to make. And so we've spent a tremendous amount of time on the phone and Zooming, talking to each other, getting everything together, and this presumably would have been in a room to begin with, and we each have offices that we would go to each other's office and really, really hash it out, go out to a studio, pitch the idea, hopefully sell it to a studio executive. They order the screenplay, and then we go back and we spend time together and we write a very extensive outline together that is more for us than anybody else. But to any of your listeners that are wannabe writers, just spend the time on the outline, because you can spend a week and go 10 pages in the wrong direction on your screenplay, and if it doesn't work in your outline, then it's not going to work in your screenplay, which is much shorter. So we do that, and then we literally just divide it up. One of us takes act one takes act two. We go home, we challenge ourselves to write at least 5 pages a day, so we have a first draft done in roughly a week and a half. But this is after spending a considerable amount of time developing the story. And then we have something tangible to work on that we really like, and then we just call it flipping, and we just literally read the draft in the morning, do what we call our pencil changes on OneNote. It's in the Microsoft Surface Pro, which is another great
annotate on the scripts freehand.
You can just write on them, and Carey and I can see them in real time, which is, we can talk and go, see right here, this is the area of the script where I think the scene needs work or what have you. And then literally we just do the pencil changes that afternoon and create a new draft to read the next day and the next day and the next day until we just feel that it's ready. I will tell you, I think a lot of our success has come from the fact that we don't turn in anything too early, that we literally don't turn in a first draft until it's actually ready to be shot. And so a lot of these executives will read it and they'll go, oh my God, wow, we don't need a rewrite. We don't need to hire other writers. And I think that's just sort of been our rule, and it may take us an extra 3, 4, 20 drafts, who knows? But just don't turn it in until it's ready. Where that saying where good enough isn't, just good enough isn't. It's just what's the best you can do. And then you want to fill in the draft in such detail that you can get movie stars. They have stuff to do. They feel like, wow, these are scenes that I can do. Or a visionary director like James Wan, when we came on, and I wrote The Conjuring, and Warner's New Line, where they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And they said, we're going after one guy, and if he responds, we'll be making this movie in 2 months or 3 months. And his name's James Wan. And Carey and I were very familiar with him. And he read the draft and he loved it, but he had a stipend that he wanted to sit down with Carey and I and talk about things that he felt he wanted to change in the draft and how accommodating we would be, which is very normal in Hollywood. And if a writer isn't accommodating to the director just brings on a new writer. It's like that. And so I'll never forget this. Carey
Is that from experience?
Yes.
That's happening to us.
We met James.
Wait, you want to change what? Huh?
Yeah, it continues through production, but we met James for lunch, and the meeting just went on at the same restaurant into dinner, because we just literally stayed there through lunch and dinner, and just got on so well, and collaboratively, we just felt like we all made the screenplay even better, and so and that was our experience on The Conjuring. It was fantastic, really fun, and
So with-
we responded to it, which was great.
On movies like The Conjuring, are you guys really involved in the actual filming part?
Nick, to answer that question, yes, we were on the first Conjuring. We relocated, shot that in Wilmington, North Carolina for about 3 months. Chad brought his son Dylan, I brought my son Connor, and the four of us shared a house at Wrightsville Beach. And it's such a funny story because we had been there, vacation there, we had friends that lived there, so we were very excited to go there. But when they were finding a place for us to stay, they said, "Where do you guys want to stay?" And we said, "Wrightsville Beach." And they go, "Ooh, God, that's pretty far from the studio." And we're like, "Wait, how far is it?" And they go, "Oh, God, that's like a good 15-minute commute."
And we're like, we live in Los Angeles, man. It takes an hour and a half to get anywhere. It's like, what are you talking about?
It was funny, but we were there and we were on set every single day. We built the house inside of a soundstage and the basement in a separate soundstage so we can just control it all the time. They had a drape, what's it called? A drape cloth around the entire house, which was picture a 360-degree photograph of outside the house. So anytime you looked outside a window inside the stage, it matched the trees, it matched the lake in the back of the actual house where we shot all the exteriors. And it was such a great experience, man. Everybody got along really, really well. The five daughters that were all cast as the five daughters were awesome. Chad and I would host a oyster fest because we love oysters out here on the West Coast. You eat them raw.
Yeah.
You know, East Coast, you gotta like do them in water like clams because they're in warm water. So, but we're like, people would say you can go get, where do you get oysters? And you buy a bushel of oysters, like 100 plus oysters for $25 or X for 30. And we're like, are you kidding me? And so we would host on Sundays these little oyster fests at the beach place we were at. And one of our producers had another friend in town who was producing a different movie. And he said, "Hey, can I bring my buddy?" And so this other producer, we won't mention any names, this other producer shows up and he's like looking around. He goes, "Let me get this right." He goes, "You guys work together all week and you spend the weekends eating together and doing this?" And we're like, "Yeah, we do this. Everybody gets along." He goes, "I hate everybody on my set." Any more time with them. But I think all in all, it was such a New Line executives came out for a couple of weeks at the beginning, but they just let us do what we were all doing. And James's diligence, we would really get together and talk about upcoming scenes. Can we change anything? Can we make it different? And
Always
it was our first time, Chad's and my first time of literally being involved from the beginning of the movie all the way to the end of the movie, all the way through the screen testing and the success of the movie. And it was by far one of the best rides I think we've ever been on.
Well, it's an awesome movie in general. Like I've loved it. I've watched it probably 100 times. Yeah. I guess my question is too, like on those films, whenever you're filming it, is it to us, the viewer, it's creepy. Everything is really creepy about it, you know, especially playing hide and clap, those scenes. Whenever you're filming those or on set, does it get creepily overwhelming for like the actors, you guys, or is it just, hey, we're here, we got to do it 100 times, and then by the end of it, you're just like, it's not really anything to us.
And Nick, sometimes it's really cool. Sometimes you can feel the tension when it's really going well, you know, and you have good actors that kind of pull you in. Just to put it in your heads, like you guys we're all on video with you right now, and you got your headsets on. So we create what's called a video room on set, and so there will be like us four are all part of the movie. We're not on the actual set where the actors are. We're next door. There's a wall that divides us. So this video village moves around. It allows us to watch it in real time, and you're listening. So yeah, there's like, oh my God, that's really working. That's freaking great. I'll share a little story. Lorraine Warren, who's just, you know, since passed away, but an awesome, awesome woman. Karen and I spent a tremendous amount of time with her, and we got onto the set, and she had never been on a movie set before. And if you remember in the scene when Patrick Wilson is looking for Vera, and she slipped down the wall, and he's screaming out, Lorraine, Lorraine, Lorraine. Lorraine Warren is sitting in between Karen and I in the video village, and we're about to take that scene. And James is like, action. And Pat's like, Lorraine, Lorraine. And she goes, I'm in here, honey. Honey, I'm in here. James was completely separate from the movie. And we're like, oh, Lorraine, you can't. You gotta be really kind of sorry. She did it again the next time. And then she finally understood that, oh, this is like a fucking scene. They're not really following her.
You
But
know,
that was
hey,
so real
Chad, if I
big.
could
Yeah.
interrupt, because I mean, to answer your question, I think one of my favorite moments was, and this was tons of people on set, Joey King's lying in bed, and there's something behind the door. She wakes up her sister, right? And we were all standing off camera, and Joey King, I'm watching her act, and she's looking at the door, but she's so convincing, you know, and she probably had to, I mean, we covered that 25 different ways. I mean, from the rolling shot under the bed, I mean, all of that stuff. And that was the one time when they wrapped her for the night, the entire crew applauded her. Just said, oh my God, we knew it because it gave me chills. There's nothing behind the door.
It's also
behind the door, but she's so good. She's convincing us all there's something behind.
Well, that girl has gone on to do amazing work. I mean, she's so immensely talented. All the girls were really talented. We kind of, you know, she had the scenes where she could really shine. You know, there was a lot for her to do. But you bring up another memory when Carey and I were in Australia, and we don't have credit on this movie, but we worked on San Andreas, the earthquake movie with Jane Johnson for years. We were down in Australia during the entire filming of that movie. And when Wayne was trying to bring Alexandra Daddario back to life when she drowned on the boat, and he was so emotional in that scene. And here we are in a soundstage with a green screen, and they're on a boat that's on a gimbal that's swivel. There's nothing real about it at all, other than these effects. But you're watching on this monitor. I remember getting very tearful at that moment, like being a dad and having kids. But the idea of that was going through his mind, and he's also a father, as we all know. But and not even on a scary moment, but on an emotional moment. So yeah, it's really, God,
you know what?
It works in a great way.
Alexandra walked off after they were done, and she walked by. I was on the set that day, and she looks at me and she goes, "That was intense," because she's pretending to be out, and she said, "All I can do is feel his tears hitting my body," and she had to just be so, like, you know, comatose because he's bringing her back. Moments like that are very rewarding as writers, because when you know, Chad and I write what's in our head. You know, it's the dialogue, it's the scene, it's the scare. You know, scares are like comedy. It's all in the setup. It's all in the pacing. Then bang, what's the reveal? Who's the villain? All of that stuff. But when you get actors that take your words or even modify them or massage them into something that is so memorable, you know, it's Joey King in that scene. We wrote out but how she did it was awesome. And it's the most rewarding thing for me to be in a movie theater and go, oh, Chad and I were in the backyard writing that scene on and look at it. Look how it turned out.
You know what's amazing too is sometimes when the actors, when the really good ones, they know their roles so well. And Karen and I got approached on The Conjuring separately by Patrick Wilson and Ron Livingston, saying they both felt like something was missing from the connection to each other's character, which was really so interesting. Karen and I started thinking about it, and then we go, you know what, they're right. And this is the advantage of having writers on set, because you develop the relationship with those actors, you understand their approach to the characters. And this is when we came up with the carburetor scene in The Conjuring, because that's the two dads talking to each other about each other's lives, and it just made them so human
And connected, yeah.
and connected. And that just came from two really great actors feeling the need for something a little bit more. And this is why we love being on set, because we would have missed out on that, or a producer would have called us in LA and said, oh, Ron or Pat or this, and they're like, oh wait, how much is that going to cost? We gotta do
hey, let's be honest for a second. I mean, as writers, you're staring at your writing partner for one thing, but you're staring at a computer screen and words all day long. So the reward is the journey of movie making. We love making movies, and starting from just a little thought, that grows into something. But I mean, Chad and I have been so fortunate. We've written miniseries in Germany. We've been to India. We've been to Romania. We've been South America. We've been so many places because of the writing and the opportunities that it gives us.
Carey and I have a moment where someone took a picture of us, and we were in Transylvania, and we were by Vlad's castle in Transylvania, and we were shooting a movie called Crucifixion, and we looked at each other and we go, I'm actually getting paid to do this right now.
Isn't that awesome?
Paid to do this. I mean, this is like, we've never felt like it's work. It's like we were so fortunate to turn our passion into a living, and we really try to encourage anybody out there is just, if you find your passion, you will find success, because it stops being work and you love it so much. Sometimes our wives are like, you've been at it 16 hours today. Come on, let's go. Or sometimes Carey and I will be on a holiday together with our families, and we just start breaking a story because it just starts happening. And our families have actually really grown to like it. And we ask for their opinions, probably too much, but because our kids are so honest that, nah, that kind of sucks, or whatever. But it's like, it's just a very fortunate thing. But Justin, I wanted to throw a question your way, because you had done all your homework, on us on our films. And this is by no means being even specific if you don't have an answer, but I'm curious, out of our body of work, did you have something that was your favorite that stuck out as like, wow, I really identified with that, or I love that, or?
Yeah, so I'm super fascinated by the creative experience, or the process itself. And so when I was going through and researching all the work you guys did on The Conjuring, you ended up creating an entire universe of work. So much came out of that. And that's the most fascinating part to me, to answer your question. And the question that comes to mind for me, and I pulled an older interview. I found one kind of deep in the internet with you guys. And you explained the thing that makes it special for you, specifically on The Conjuring, what the interview was about. I think it was actually maybe part 2, but you explained it in terms of a roller coaster, and how you can't have a roller coaster full of twists and turns and upside downs. You have to build some suspense and things like that. And it made your movies specifically really, really good. So I just, like I said, it's a creative process, and I really just want to dig into more of that.
Justin, you need to always have pockets of air to breathe in, because you're right. You just, people write these horror movies, and it's one thing after the next and next and next, and you just start becoming numb, so you don't build that tension. When we did the original Conjuring and created the artifacts room, we looked at that artifacts room as, there's our universe. We get to open that up into whatever, different types of movies, Annabelle movies, Crooked Man, Nun, all of that stuff. But you're absolutely right, and we use that analogy all the time about the train. It's almost like guilty pleasure watching a horror movie and riding a
roller
coaster, because you're safe, you paid your money, you're going to be scared, but at the end of it, you're going to walk out and go, I either want to do that again, or I want to go try a different ride. So when the great thing is, like, if you break down a movie into the teaser and act 1 and act 2 and act 3 and structure, that when you get on that, that roller coaster, your teaser is somebody said, oh, I already wrote that, man. That is scary, scary, scary. You got to go do it. So when you get on it and you're going, that first one, man, you're waiting for it, and then you drop and your stomach ends up in your throat, and you're going, oh my God, this is going to be a ride. You get hit with a couple things real fast, and then, okay, we're going up another one.
Carey, you know what? You guys, I'll share with you, when we were doing press for Conjuring 2, they brought Carey and I, they usually take over a floor of a hotel, and they'll put different press personalities, in a big round table, pull out all the furniture. And so you're literally going to 20 rooms every 4 or 5 minutes. You're switching up to meet with journalists and writers and interviewers and all that kind of stuff. And at the end, Carey and I walked in, and there were 2 chairs, and there was just a reality a headset that you put on.
VR set.
Yeah, virtual reality.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, what we didn't know is they were filming Carey and I, and they sat us down in the chair, and they're playing a scene from Conjuring 2. And it was so intense because you were in the set, and it's as if you're being approached by the nun, and we both wrote it. We were like, wait, where is that thing? And then we saw the film afterwards, and we looked like so chicken. It's crazy from even having written it. And hey, does she come up the stairs, or is she up the door? It was hysterical. It was, and that made it actually really fun to actually be in the mindset of being in that kind of a film. Again, it's a good actor that can portray that.
You know what else is incredibly rewarding is to go opening weekend and randomly go through theaters and watch the audience reaction to the movie on the screen. So Chad and I will go get in the very back, and we'll just watch the audience, and we know what's coming, right? So it's fun to watch people gripping their chairs or whispering to each other or screaming at, don't go in the basement, don't go. And it's just, it just brings
Carey, share. We were with the first Conjuring. It was on opening night. James was already filming Fast and Furious, and he was in Atlanta. And the opening night, we got a call from New Line, and they go, get your asses down to the studio right now. This is crazy. And at that time, they weren't on the lot. They were next to this cool restaurant that we all met in. And we live in Malibu, and it was like a 2-hour drive to get in there. And they were
on a Friday night.
It's because the movie was just, they knew it was going to be a massive hit just from Friday night and the numbers that were coming in. So we all celebrated, and Instagram was just nonstop, just on the thing. You couldn't stop it. Twitter, I mean. And then we called James from the restaurant, and he was just so bummed he wasn't there. And part of the thing, he goes, I'm flying in tomorrow. We're doing this again tomorrow night. We're all going to meet at a restaurant. So he flew in from Atlanta. We all met at another restaurant. We're just celebrating. It was just the most wonderful event to just have that kind of, a success happen. And then he goes, oh my God, let's go to the Burbank, this movie chain over in Burbank.
AMC.
So we all hop in our cars. Producers are with us. They go in, they talk to the manager. Look, here's the 15 people that kind of put this movie together. They just want to come in and see audience reaction. And the manager, he was like, wait, can you, James, Carey, and Chad, can you guys just go introduce your film in front of the audience? He goes, we're completely sold out, and you have about 5 minutes before it starts. So we're like, yeah, we'll go do that. We walked in with James. The guy gave us the thing. There was 600 people in one of those bigger theaters, and people just couldn't believe that, it's James, one. I mean, they didn't really know Carey and I, but we introduced the movie, and then we're all waiting to go into another theater and check it out. And one of the movies is almost over, and this girl goes dashing out the theater, and her boyfriend's running after her, and she's just like terrified, absolutely terrified. I'm not watching any more of that movie. I'm not. And Carey stops her, goes up to her, and what's the matter? I'm too scared. I'm not going back in. And Carey goes, he kind of whispered to her how the movie was going to end. Like there's a happy ending. There's no this, and blah 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 blah. And actually convinced her just go back and watch the rest of the movie because now she knew what was going to happen, and it was really awesome to see. And her boyfriend was so thrilled because he was bummed he was missing the movie.
Yeah. I remember whenever you guys, or whenever they put out on Facebook the virtual reality, like you could walk around the upstairs in that house on Conjuring 2, and the nun, like randomly, because you're like, oh geez, there she is. And you're like, get out of here, like I don't want to see this. That was probably the freakiest part of the Conjuring 2, is because originally that's Valak, right? The horse body boy, that's what the demon actually is, I guess, portrayed at. But so where was the idea for our nun? Like, where did that come from?
Just like, I think it was the biggest blasphemy against faith, right?
Yeah.
And how do you take something that represents peace and tranquility and a faith and nurture and all of that, and especially in a female's point of view, because it's against Lorraine. I mean, Lorraine is the female president. She's the matriarch, and she's got the vision and it was also they had some weird stuff happen at their house one time, and so it was like, what was the visionary and a complete opposite of and a
what's the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing? Deceit often hides behind the garments of the holy. I mean, we've all experienced that through our lives with all the the unfortunate things that happen behind church curtains and clergy and all that kind of stuff. So, your most trusted figure is generally a religious figure, and in our Conjuring world is we go to the church for help. Ed Lorraine made a career out of it, never collected a dime. I mean, Ed basically was an artist, is how he made their money when they first started. And he
painted haunted houses.
He painted haunted homes, and then they would knock on the door and say, "Oh, by the way, your house is haunted, and this is what's inside of it." And he ended up selling a lot of the paintings. And in the Conjuring, the first Conjuring, all of his paintings in the artifact room are in fact his paintings. Yeah, which is really, really neat. But anyway, it was now they're doing the second Nun movie, and then the next spinoff is The Crooked Man, and then, as we all know, Annabelle 3, the third one of that came out. And Carey and I really look to, we love writing true stories. You both have been on the internet. You both know these experiences of the parent family and stuff. So people can realize, like, God, this stuff really exists. These guys aren't just making it up. If anything, we have to pull back a little bit because it begins to feel not very truthful if there's too much in there. And so we weeded through a lot of those experiences with the young girls. The original parent girls came to the set, the exterior set, and Cindy, the youngest one, they're all adults now. They all came walking around. It was the scene where we were filming Bathsheba hanging from the oak tree, from that big tree, and Lorraine sees it and Ed doesn't. But we actually had Joe Bashara, who's the composer, plays Bathsheba. He's done that in both. He plays all the villains in the movies, and he's the composer of the film. He's just great. He's in Insidious and Conjuring, and he and James are very close. But the girls walked around the corner of the house. Carey and I were with them. And the youngest girl literally saw that and just freaked out and collapsed to the ground, turned her back to it, and got up and just walked and it was just, it brought back just not good memories for her. And that's you don't get that on the internet, but you sure see that in person. And for someone to be as scarred as that, those were real events that happened to this family. And in truth, that family stayed in that house for 9 years, which was that's the biggest question. It's like, why? But our job is we have to tell this movie in 100 minutes, so we have to condense it down, and audiences always want to know. It's the biggest question. Why don't you just leave? Just leave and get out of there. So in every one of these films, you have to answer that question. The parents had no money. They're a family of 7. Who's going to take them in? Where do we go? What do we do? Money is really super tight. We try to give those reasons, and then condense the storytelling time so it feels more real time in shorter periods, basically.
Yeah, and I think even for the dad role in that movie, anybody that owns a home knows that, hey, I'm going to stand my ground here. Like, I paid for this. Like, I'm not just going to up and leave just because there's a ghost or whatever. Yeah, it's going to freak me out.
Well, you also have the dark side of this world creates wedges in families. Like, they don't all unitedly see the same thing. It's like with Ron, Libby's, with Roger Perrins is the character he's playing. We purposely kept him as an outsider. So, wait, what's happening here? And so many times in these other movies, there is it focuses on one person. Crack that bond chip that they have, and just get that wedge of evil working one against the other. And then, is it psychological? Is it real? Those are the fun things to be able to start playing. It's a formulaic in most horror movies anyway.
Yeah.
What's the draw to horror genre? Is it that
Okay, Justin, your audio is going out. I can't hear you. Your audio.
I'm sorry. So are we good now?
Oh, it's going in and out. That's weird. Is it that ghost that's right behind you interfering?
It could be.
There, that's better.
What's the draw to horror? Is it that feeling that you get on set when it's, you have this gut adrenaline thing going on? Or you said earlier that you had your own experiences. Is that what keeps you there?
Yeah, I think Chad and I mean, geez, we wrote Disney Channel movies and movies of the week and happy family stuff and all of that. And we did a movie a long time ago, came out in 2005, called House of Wax. And it was our first scary type of movie where it was a pretty brutal movie, to be honest with you. But it was an open title at Warner Brothers that they were looking for writers to come in with a story, and we went, listen, we had an idea in our head and they bought it and we made it. And then suddenly we were scary writers. We weren't Disney writers anymore. And that rolled into what we do after it did Whiteout and The Reaping, and then started getting other things. But I think the deeper Chad and I got into that world, it is a really interesting world to write because, your villains aren't usually people. They're demonic in nature. They're an apparition. They're a ghost. They're a spirit. We got the chance, Chad and I did the prequel to The Omen for Fox that I think they're actually going to be making now. And for us, I was like, whoa, where's Damien come from? It taps.
It was challenging.
Okay.
It was challenging in a fun way. It's just, like anything creative, it's just challenge yourself, right? And you either do it or you don't. And it's sort of like a sports activity. Can you make the shot or can you not? And how much do you practice? And we've been at it for a while, but what we've started doing now is to, after San Andreas, we got to go into an arena that we loved, which was really huge, very expensive action films, which is really great. I just got hired by MGM to do an adaptation of a Frank Reddy book called This Present Darkness, and it came out 25 years ago. That deals with angels and demons and humans and the church, and it was so interesting. I remember when I read it that long ago, and we're doing it with a friend who was an equal. He liked the book just as much as we did, and then the head of the studio came in, and he was a fan of the book. So that all kind of worked, but that's a chance to do a big expensive thing. We're putting together, as I mentioned earlier, a pitch right now that we're super excited about. But the studio, as part of the pitch, is can you make it into a ride? Think about that when you're coming up with your idea. Like Jurassic Park became a ride at Universal, and we were like, "Hell yeah, we'll do that. That sounds amazing. That's just so much fun." So again, it's the challenges that you just we don't get everything, but we love the idea of trying, and just.
I also think that what Chad said earlier about true stories resonate with us, and it's almost like a viewer, an audience member that goes to the movie to watch it. Us being at the forefront is we're the viewer who gets to investigate it to find out what we want to put on it. Like when we did a rewrite of the movie The Entity for Fox, and that was right here in Culver City in Los Angeles. And you read about Dolores, I can't remember her last name, but to what this woman went through, and it was an entity. It wasn't even a being per se. It was just some weird spirit, and what it did to her, and the witnesses and all that. I feel like that's our movie. That's the one that we're seeing before we write. So it kind of sucks us into that world. And I think we started finding it very intriguing to be able to do that. But at the same time, we bounce out and we did a Western, we did a smoke jumper movie. We've done different things because they're fun to write.
We did really fun. We did McLean. We did the prequel to Die Hard. So we got to tell you where the Bruce Willis character came from, how did he meet his wife, where did Yippee-ki-yay motherfucker come from? Sorry, probably shouldn't have said that.
You're good. Oh, you're okay.
Where all that came from, and it was just fun. It was really fun, and where you're gonna have it take place, and how much action. And we got to see how he became a cop. It's like if you did a prequel to Lethal Weapon. Like what would be the movie before you met Riggs, before he tried to kill himself because of his wife passing and stuff like that. But I mean, that's the fun of our job. It's like every job is different. It's just different in a different way. But, to answer your question, Nick, on which period, so we started on House of Wax and had some success early on. And so you become those go-to writers, and then you develop relationships, because you may not get credit on movies, but sometimes you're hired to come in and work for 2 weeks or 3 weeks on a film just before production, to amp up the scares, make the dialogue more centric to a particular character that you've enhanced, and stuff like that. So through that comes relationships, and then those people, hey, what else you got? What do you guys want to do? New Line said to Carey and I, after the success of, it was Andreas, right there?
We did after Conjuring, we did Redemption as a big action Western movie. I mean, big action. And then Toby Emmerich was at a New Line, and he goes, don't take this the wrong way, but I was really surprised by how good the script is. And we're like, what? He goes, no, you guys write. Really, I didn't expect genre writers to be able to write big action movies. And then that's when he said, hey, we take a look at this other project called San Andreas, big earthquake movie. And so we looked at that one. Yeah, this is what we would do to that movie. And then what we did, got Dwayne Johnson on board, and the rest is history. So, it's just kind of fun to not eat the same food all the time called horror candy. Let's eat some other kind of candy that tastes just as good.
Yeah. Do you have any specific rituals that you kind of go through as you start your process?
Other than just this, please. You know what? I think,
what we do? We have a celebration ritual that we did forever. Whenever we had a film ordered or a script ordered, when our kids were younger, and because our kids all love seafood, we would do these big family seafood feasts of, expensive crab legs and oysters and all that kind of stuff, and champagne. And it's another thing I would like for your listeners to also know is to, you always got to celebrate the moments, because you can't play a result. And so if today you're really happy, you have a lot to give thanks for and be happy for that day. There's people in our business that are like, yeah, I'll be really stoked when we actually start production. And then I'll be really stoked when we finish production. No, I'll be stoked when we get a good cut. It's like, oh my God, you're missing all these celebratory moments, in between, which is kind of life, It's just really just focus and appreciate the achievements, because, every step takes a journey, okay? And that journey is a process. And there's a lot of fun steps in that journey, not just the end result when the journey's over. And then it's like, oh, well, what was all, oh, yeah, I guess that was really fun, or whatever. But it's been important to us. So I think more of a ritual is just really being super appreciative. We've been in locations before where we have relied on prayer, to be honest with you. Like we were in India doing a lot of research in some very dark stuff, and we just prayed for protection, that none of this would infiltrate into our lives.
We were in before COVID hit, we're doing another project in Louisiana on a haunted house down there, and Chad and I stayed in the house because we wanted to write the movie, and had it's the only time I brought holy water with me, because I knew what I was kind of getting into. And again, some things happened that we had to really pray hard. But I feel
again, it's based on a true story. It's one of the most haunted homes in the world. Carey and I were so aware of it because we've been to New Orleans so many times. On the Lori house and from 100 to and turns out that the guy we know owns that house. He bought it after Nick Cage lived there. And we went down with three other guys, and one of the guys who's a dad will never step foot back in the house again, ever, just after an experience. And Carey and I never experienced anything negative there, although his was very negative. But we experienced a boatload. Again, you can't tell me it doesn't exist. When you see it in your own eyes, and you wake up to a house that is suddenly covered with it's like little feathers on a 15,000 square foot home, it's like, what does this mean? I don't know what it means, Or the sound of a baby crying all the time, and the house is so big.
Doors opening, rattling, closing. I woke up and saw a ghost.
Yeah, that was
man standing at the foot of my bed. That I wasn't frightened for some reason. I was looking at him and I was trying to go, what time period? The house is over 200 years old. But I'm like, what time period is this guy from and how he's dressed? And it was kind of in the 70s-ish, dressed that way, 80s maybe. It's like how my dad would dress with gray slacks and this kind of forest green shirt. And it turns out when I told the housekeeper, when I had seen this man I had seen, she kind of blanches and she goes, it sounds like my husband who died here. And she goes, I feel him, but I've never seen him. And she pulls out a picture and I go, yeah, that's the guy I saw.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And but people have had so many different sightings inside this house, good and bad. Anyway, I didn't.
So we bought our house probably 4 or 5 months ago. It was built in the 60s. And there's 2 like attic crawl spaces.
Upstairs.
Bad start. Bad start.
Bad.
Oh, I know.
My first reaction is like, hey, let's go in. So we found the rolled up Declaration of Independence and soldier's discharge paperwork from like 1924. So World War I time frame.
Wow.
And so one of the creepiest things that has happened so far, which from where I'm from, like the Missouri area that I'm from, there's a lot of different, like you have the Villisca Axemerger house, all that random stuff. And so I'm kind of used to this, but one night I was just kind of laying on the couch, and we have 2 11 and 12-year-old boys that live there. So used to hearing kids laugh and all this stuff. But I heard a kid laugh and I was like, hey, I just kind of was like talking to nobody that was there, but I was like, hey, you should go to bed. It's already like 1 o'clock. And I was like, nothing happened. And then I walked into the room and the kids are both in their beds asleep. And I'm like, oh, here we go. The Amityville Horror. I'm going to have to go down to the basement and start watching a TV that's not on.
It happened. And then Nick heard.
Yeah.
No, that would be okay.
It just happened to my wife and I a week ago. We live in a 110-year-old home here in Los Angeles. It's a Craftsman, so it's really super cool. I love it. And my wife is very intuitive, and we've never felt anything negative being in here at all. And we were in the kitchen the other day, and we both turned around to a woman's voice, like in the corner of the kitchen. And we both turned at the exact same time. And the air conditioning was on, the windows were closed, all of that. And we kind of looked at each other and go, oh, you heard that, right? You heard that. And it was like, yeah, nothing else since that, but clear as day, yet we can't, neither one of us could tell what she was saying. It was just clearly a woman's voice saying something that like would have been from someone behind you, and then you turn around and say, I beg your pardon, or what'd you say? Or, something like that. But the only instance here, I had my first ghost encounter when I was 22, and Carey and I were living in a house in LA, and we were going to UCLA, and it was on a canyon. And I woke up to a very large man sitting on a planter box inside the room. It sounds weird, but it was an inside planter. in the master, and it was backlit by the moon. And my dog at the time was in my room, and my dog was staring at him at the exact same time I was. And I was like, who are you? What do you want? What are you doing here? You know, it was clear as day. And I remember because he was bald and he kept trying to cross his legs. He was so large, he had to hold his leg across his other leg, you know, just very distinctive movements like that. And then I woke up and I told Carey, oh, I had the weirdest dream last night. This is like really freaky. There was this dude in my room and blah, blah, blah. It turns out Carey and I, the home used to belong to a movie star. And 3 months after that encounter, we actually met her at a neighbor's house, and she's the woman that built the house. And I never forget walking up the stairs to the second level, passing by her, and someone told Carey and I, oh, yeah, there's Kareem. And so we were introduced, and we just started chatting to each other on the stairs. And she goes, have you met Henry? And we go, I don't know Henry. He's the ghost that lives in the house. He's this very large, bald man. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. And so there it goes. And and so it's so easy to pass it off as, oh, that was a weird dream, or that didn't really happen. And Carey and I are working on another project right now that deals with a guy who was a UFO abductee, and there were 4 eyewitnesses to him disappearing for 4 hours. And we're putting a TV series together around him and this other character. But when we first met him, it was just like, this I got to hear. I've got to hear this. And then, you know, and then it's, as it turns out now, he's probably one of the most visited human beings by, you can't, again, there have been eyewitnesses to orbs flying in the sky, to ships coming out over the ocean. So you can't tell us that doesn't exist. And anyone says our government is trying to hide it, yeah, they are, because they've been researching it for a very, very long time. And Chris is actually part of a bunch of government programs, you know, and anyway, that's a whole other podcast. We'll figure that one out. But it's just being open to all this otherworldly stuff. We just don't say no to anything anymore. Seriously, it's like people have had these personal experiences, profound experiences that have really changed their lives. Chris in particular, this abductee, was dying of Crohn's disease, and after his abduction, it disappeared from his body. And he claims his encounter was with angels, not aliens. And I mean, like, really interesting stuff. And there's so many of these people that have encountered all this kind of thing. So anyway, that's when I just go back to, wow, I identify with it because you're a human being and you had a profound experience. And what was that experience? And, you know, people that have died and gone to heaven and come back to, you know, tell you, wow, heaven's a real place. I was there. Or hell, you know, and this is what I experienced. So it's one of the challenges as a creative filmmaker on picking and choosing what stories you want to tell, because they're all so great, you know. Carey and I moved into producing films now. There's just not enough time for us to write everything. So we've come across a handful of writers that we find to be really talented, and we've been developing those other stories that we don't have time for, but we're attached as a producer on them, and that's been a really fun experience. There was a guy, a country music singer named Hoyt Axton, who wrote Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog and Bony Fingers, and his mom wrote a lot of Elvis Presley hits, and he was our neighbor where we grew up in Lake Tahoe. And this man just went out of his way to read our first screenplay and became so supportive of us and brought us to LA when he came down to pick up his band and introduced us to a bunch of his friends. He just played it forward. It was just amazing. And so we kind of try to implement that as a sidebar in our lives of just helping other people. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of time to do it. We have to be incredibly selectful, but it's just often a privilege to take these younger people through, and when they sell their first movie, or my son's a director, he's 25 and he just got his first gig, and it was just super, super cool. And it's being done by Fox and, you know, next month, and they have to go through all the COVID stuff and everything in order to do production. But it's a very, very rewarding part of what we get to do. I don't know what made me even say all that, but
well, we appreciate it.
Hey, Carey.
Awesome. Yes, sir.
Right behind you, over your left shoulder, I think I see a doll I want to talk about real quick.
My little precious.
Get it out of here.
So
my question is this:
Oh boy.
yes, oh boy,
Ah.
They're really good friends.
Yeah.
So we have
I'm
Annabelle
sorry.
twins. They're twins.
those when they were, because Annabelle makes her first appearance in The Conjuring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The original Conjuring. And my question is, it's originally, what is in Ed and Lorraine's museum is a Raggedy Ann doll, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that doll or actually been around it?
We haven't been. We didn't go in their artifacts room in their actual. That's at their house. That's the artifacts
In
room at their house.
Connecticut, yeah.
They do have it blessed. We couldn't get the legal rights to do a Raggedy Ann look-alike because who does Mattel want to now sell dolls that little girls can cuddle that are possessed? No, I don't. So James, this is actually James' design. He worked with a very talented artist who sculpted it out of clay, and he would show up and say, "What do you think of this?" And James like, "Bring the cheeks in more, do this, do that." So they kind of worked together in creating that doll. So that was how that one came about. But when Dad was telling you the story that New Line called us and said, "Hey, man, Friday night opening is huge. Come, celebrate with us." They gave everybody an Annabelle doll was part of their marketing thing. And so we're in a restaurant where everybody's just, thank you. And doing other things that I won't mention, but it was just kind of a fun beginning,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was always curious about that side of it, just because, for one, I was curious on I think Ed was already passed away before you guys started writing, right? But Lorraine was still around. So your guys' writing and I think just the actors, I'm not sure I can't remember the names of Ed and Lorraine in the movies, but just how they work so well together, you just buy into it. Like in the movie itself, throughout the whole movie, you're just like, Ed feels like your dad. Like you feel like Ed would really take care of you. He'd go above and beyond. And Lorraine's just that same way. I think that's what, to me, really sells those movies, is just because what they bring to the table. One question is, and so I'm a musician, of course.
Carey, we've talked about this.
Very good musician, by the way.
Thank you. I did a cover of Elvis's song. What is it now? Off the top of my head, I can't remember. It's in the second Conjuring movie when Ed is.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Fools Rush In. That's
Fools Rush In, yeah.
Yeah, and that was that improv? I felt like that was improv, or was it actually written into the script that he was going to do that?
That was a James Wan idea, and he went up to Patrick and he said, "Dude, can you sing? I don't even know if you can sing." And it turns out Patrick goes, "Yeah, I love to sing." And James felt at that moment that it's the roller coaster moment. We need to breathe. We need some happiness. We need some just to expand this family in despair. And so James told Pat that this is the song I want you to sing. And so Patrick, wholeheartedly embraced it. He's that kind of, the entire cast was just wonderful. That's Patrick Wilson is his name, and Vera Farmiga plays Lorraine in our movies. But to answer the question, that was James' idea.
Chad and I had written that line in there saying where the mother says, when my husband left, all the music, he took the music out of the house and said, Patrick's like, yeah, I get it. And she goes, no, literally, he took all the music, all the records, everything. So for us as a character, Ed Warren would step into that patriarch's role of that family, the dad's gone and all of that. But, for Chad and I, when we say, what is The Conjuring? At the heart of The Conjuring is a love story between Ed and Lorraine Warren. They are the perfect couple. They are a love thy neighbor. They will give you the shirts off their back, but they work so well together. They respect each other. It's like a great mother-father role, and that was intentional. you know, that you wanted to, you need to have a steady, something steady in these worlds, you know, everything else is going to hell in a handbasket, but where's the calm, you know? And it's kind of like when Ed and Lorraine stepped into that story of The Conjuring, it's like you're in act 3 of the parents' lives. I mean, this is like, God, it's crazy. And then we purposely wanted that the people, the experts, how do you tell it from their point of view and what rattles them? And then how do we tug and pull at that relationship? So we've been able to carry that in the first couple Conjuring movies, you know, promises made to each other, you know, and Ed, you promised, you know, and in Conjuring 2, he can't stop himself. He has to go save people when he can. But you promised, I know, Lorraine, I know I promised, I'm sorry, you know? And then her love for him drives her to go help him, you know? And those are the heroes you want. That's the family dynamic Chad and I love in the movies. In San Andreas, Dwayne and his wife, you know, Carla, Regina, you know, all those separating, going through all different things, you know. Oh yeah, we have an earthquake movie going on, but it's really uniting this fractured family at the center of that movie. So anyway.
What was it like working with The Rock?
Oh, he's awesome. He's a great guy. Carey and I, it's really funny story. When we wrote San Andreas, the producer Beau Flynn was working on Hercules with Dwayne. We didn't know any of this was going on in the background, and Carey and I both woke up to a text on our phones. Hey dudes, I love your script. Let's circle the wagons and get to work. DJ, and I went, or Dwayne Johnson. We go, and we called each other. I go, this can't be Dwayne Johnson. I don't even know Dwayne Johnson. How did he get our number, whatever? And Karen and I both wrote back and like, you know, give me a break. Who is this? You know, like, we know. And he wrote back right away. He goes, it's me, dude. I'm in Romania with Beau Flynn, the producer of the movie. I dig your script. We're going to do this. I'm really excited. And we just went, yes, this is the greatest thing ever. And then when we met Dwayne, we went on the phone with him quite a bit. And we didn't meet him until we were in Australia. And his stunt double is his cousin, and his name is Tenawa. And he has virtually identical tattoos all over his body because he does doubles Dwayne all the time. And so Carey and I are walking up to the sound stage, and this guy comes between us, puts his big arms around us, bros, nice to finally meet you. And I turn around and I went, wow, you are not nearly as big as I thought you were. It's like, he's got this thing. It turns out it was his cousin just giving us a hard time. And then Dwayne came up right behind him afterwards. And it was really fun. We ended up writing another movie for Dwayne, an MGM film that actually never made it to screen, called SEAL Team 666, which he was on, like a SEAL team that fights the demonic, you know, and which he was really, really into. Just a lovely guy, just like what you see in person and his personality. And we met him before he was married to Lauren, but Lauren was in Australia with him, and she's just as lovely as he is. He's got an ex-brother-in-law, Hiram, who is an awesome guy as well, that you know, is his producing partner. And put it this way, he's such a nice guy that his ex-wife Danny is his manager. And when Danny got remarried, he walked her down the aisle. And I mean, that's just still how tight they all are, which is really, it's a big testament. People love working with him. Never saw that side.
A great story about Dwayne was when Chad and I were down there shooting that. Chad unfortunately broke his ankle in a boating accident. And so I had to, and we were just getting ready to actually come home. And so he was going to have a prolonged stay because he couldn't fly. He had to do surgeries. And my son Sawyer, my youngest son, was asked to speak at his high school graduation. And so I wasn't going to be able to make it back. And Sawyer's gone, you know, he through his own challenges in high school. And they were so pleased with how he kind of turned his life around that he was asked to speak. And it was a big moment. And I was talking to my wife. I'm like, oh, God, man, I feel so bad. What am I going to do? And she goes, hello, who are you doing this movie with? Who's your son's biggest fan? So I went to Dwayne. And I go, you got to help me out. I go, can we shoot a little video and you just talk to Sawyer, you know, about high school and all that. So he goes, yeah, sure. So it was so funny because we did it on the set of, on the gimbal where the boat was. And it was a really cool, heartfelt message to Sawyer. Hey, man, your dad told me about your journeys. I can relate. I've had my challenges. And Sawyer could care less if I ever came home after that. It's like, DJ video talking to him.
I think I saw that video on your Facebook page.
Yes.
You may have.
Yeah.
You may have.
It was just,
We may have to steal a clip from that.
he's a pretty cool guy. We've worked with some pretty amazing people over our career.
Yeah, because you guys even working on because this year is the 15th anniversary of House of Wax, right? The year that you guys killed off Paris Hilton, right?
I'm Paris guy, May 6th. I'll never forget that T-shirt. It was crazy.
So you guys were working with Jared Padalecki before he became Sam on Supernatural.
Yeah, that was the beginning.
Yeah, and that was like one of his first ones. And then he was in Friday the 13th after that,
Or the remake, or the
reboot. And Chad Michael Murray, all those when they were young. Like,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
And my question is, like, I feel like you guys have a lot of movies that like really accelerate a lot of people's careers. Like after you write, they're in your movies, then all of a sudden they're like, hey, I kind of want to do these horror movies. Or they're like, hey, I'm going to stick to the supernatural stuff. Like literally that's what Jared Padalecki did. You know,
Yeah. Many years. You know, it's interesting, Nick, because you
Wait,
think
Nick,
about.
what were you going to say? You were saying something?
Oh, no, that was it. Yep.
Okay.
I was going to say that, you know, we told you when Chad and I did House of Wax, that was our new shift. Now we're kind of the horror writer guys, right? I think as actors, you get in a certain thing where you can shine. Jared was awesome. You know,
Oh, he was so good.
So
Yeah.
good in that. And watching his face get waxed, all that stuff was so trippy. But but it's now because it resonated with an audience, they want to see more of that, you know?
Mhm.
So I think somebody has an opportunity, or like any good movie where you have a good actor, you get that chance to shine. And you know, we had a light shine on us where we got the opportunity to do other type of movies, you know, very much like an actor. But I think, you know, like good actors, given the right opportunity, you know, will continue to work. You know, and how long was Supernatural on? 15 years.
Yeah, 15. It was literally like the day after you guys stopped filming. Yeah, he went on to Supernatural.
You know what, Nick, too, is it was interesting because that entire cast, they were all television actors, all on separate shows. Alicia Cuthbert was in 24 at the moment. Chad was on One Tree Hill. It just went on and on like that. And then maybe what the public doesn't know is in filming the finale of that movie with the wax melting and all that, the entire soundstage actually burnt down and melted, and was one of the producers, Susan Downey. She married Robert now, but she was a producer on that film. In her office, she actually has a piece of one of the cameras that's all melted down, encased in glass, of where it was. But so they shut down production, and this was the last scene that they were filming, and they had to rebuild the entire set. And then imagine getting 6 actors back together that are all on TV schedules at a time. And so literally it took them 9 months to clear schedules, and they flew them all to Australia to film for 4 days, and then came back and reshot that ending. And ironically, when Carey and I were down in Australia doing House of Wax, and Andreas, the rumors got out like, oh, you burnt Soundstage 6, because that was us returning to the House of Wax set, and we were refilming San Andreas, and they were like, God, I hope you're not cursed or anything, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't turn out to be like a poltergeist, this thing.
How many times does that happen on the sets of these just like creepy, weird things happening?
Well, Chad, share the story of Dylan in the
Oh my
artifacts
God,
room.
my son, Carey mentioned earlier, we brought our boys out, Carey's oldest and my only son, to work on the film. And Dylan ended up working for John Leonetti, who was the cinematographer on the film. John is an old friend of ours, and most of the time in Hollywood, they don't want you to hire on your kids because they just think I'm going to babysit these bratty little Hollywood kids, you know, that just don't want to work. And it's such the opposite with our boys. They're both very hard workers, and we're really into it. My son was going to film school at the time. Anyway, he gets hired by John Leonetti, and because movies, when you're filming, it's very expensive for electricity and all this kind of stuff because you have so much going on filming at night. On this particular night, we were filming in the artifacts room that would have been recreated, but in a real house in Wilmington. And my son he is a cable puller. So every night the crew has to go in, wrap the cables, everything on the ground. You don't leave anything there. You put it back in the truck and all the lights are off because you go, that's a cut, that's a wrap. You let your cast clear the set and then literally they put flashlights in their mouth and then just get to work and just start walking around. And he goes into the artifacts room by himself, rolling up cable, flashlight across the artifacts, and he goes by, and then he hears this really weird spinning noise, and he turns around, and you'll see it's after the monkey part, there's a little round cymbal thing that somehow went from the shelf onto the ground and was spinning very, very quickly. And my son my son's 6'4", by the way, it lasted about 3 seconds. He got out of there. He ran out. Scott was his boss. And Scott, what the hell are you doing? He goes, I'm not going back in there. You can't make me go back in there. I'm not going back in there. And that happened another time to someone else. And then Lorraine, when she came onto the set, and we were in interior in the house that we rebuilt in the soundstage, she walked around and she had them remove certain things that had been purchased. She goes, you guys, darkness can attach themselves to some of these things, and they just obliged her. One was a dresser, one was a remake of the Annabelle doll that was just someone had found at some old flea market somewhere, and she just said, no, you gotta get rid of that.
Hey, here's a piece of trivia. When we did House of Wax, there was some sacrificial knives and stuff that were created. And somebody just got on the internet and took this and used real stuff and real incantations and all of that.
No, that was reaping, Carey. That was in the reaping.
Oh, reaping. I'm sorry. Yeah, reaping. And some weird stuff started happening where they're like, and then I forget who came there and said, you can't use real ink. It wasn't something we had written, as far as what it was, but it was very symbolic. So they had to rechange everything because somebody had just used literal designs and
like literal pagan symbols and stuff that had real meaning behind them. And you don't want any of that. No.
Yeah, you're kind of messing with fire.
Yeah, maybe keep that where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, no, we had to, when we were doing the reaping, we shot that in Baton Rouge, and the entire crew had to be evacuated twice for hurricanes and flew to Texas, got out of plane, and crew of 80, 90 people had to go to Texas. So maybe it has something to do with it. I don't know.
Hey, have you guys, I don't know if it was the Omen series that you guys, I was reading at one time. Was Eli Roth a part of that?
Yeah, he was attached to direct it, yes.
Okay, so that's who I want to see you guys work with, is Eli Roth, because he takes stuff to, gruesome next level.
Yes. Eli loves blood.
Green Inferno is, I don't know if you guys saw that or not.
Yeah,
Green Inferno.
yes.
Oh my gosh. It's
brutal.
First hour, you're like, I'm going to throw up, maybe.
So Nick, literally, when the 4K announcement of Rad came out, Chad and I got an email from Eli going, dudes, why did we never talk about this? I'm a huge Rad fan. He goes, I had no idea you were Rod and Rex. Not something we wear on our forehead, it's like.
God, I forgot about that, Carey. That's he's an awesome guy, very, very talented, and just a super great guy. When we were developing The Devil Came to St. Louis, he was very, very involved in being part of the pitches and coming in with Carey and I, and we sold it to Amazon, and wrote the first couple of episodes. Ended up not going for reasons unbeknownst to us, but that happens, but it was fun. And literally in that Rad exchange, we were like, yeah, let's find something to do, and that's kind of how it works. It's like you will have heard of something, and hey, does this interest you? Or I have this book, let's go in. And Lorenzo Di Bonaventura was the producer on it, and Lorenzo, probably one of the top 5 producers. You know all his movies. I can't even list all of them. And he was another awesome guy who kind of put our whole team together and how we met Eli for the first time. But he's crazy fun. The guy's got the greatest sense of humor.
He's dark.
Yeah, he's
dark.
dark.
I know. I like it.
Yeah, he's one of the, in 10 years, whenever this podcast super grows real big, he's going to be another guest. And,
He'd love you guys. He would.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about Green Inferno and the association to what was the original to Green Inferno? I can't remember. Anyway,
Yeah.
So we'll gonna probably start to wrap this up. We've been on here almost an hour and a half. And,
Oh my God. Whoa.
Hey, time flies when you're having fun.
It is.
Yep. So thank you guys, honestly, for coming on here, taking the time out of your day to come and talk to some guys from Nebraska, or who currently live in Nebraska. So we truly appreciate it. The Rad Country family is going to really appreciate this interview and everything. I think one of the biggest things and why I wanted to have you guys on here was not only because I know you, or I know Carey, and now know Chad, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes on movies, and all we see are the actors, right? Because all I see is, you see San Andreas, you think The Rock. Of course, that's where my brain went initially. But you don't know who the people are that are working behind it, who wrote the script, who made the actual screenwriting happen. And I wanted to bring that to light and let people know that, hey, there's a whole world going on behind the scenes on these movies. And we really need to appreciate, because without you guys, those movies wouldn't have happened, right? The way that they happened. So, yeah, so thank you for what you guys do, honestly. That's a big appreciation to you guys, especially myself as a horror fan. Justin, I think Justin really loved the questions I kept getting. He wanted to know your guys' processes and how you run the business and what you guys, how you guys do things. And from both of us, I think that we, in this past hour and a half, we got everything that we
wanted to
Awesome.
get.
You know what, Nick? Yeah, meeting you and Justin for the first time. Carey's spoken so highly about you in the past, so it's really a pleasure to actually meet you guys, across the screen for sure. Absolutely our pleasure. If your listeners weren't satisfied with some questions we missed, let's do it again. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of fun. And
I was actually going to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to piggyback on what you're saying. I was hoping we could do a round 2 at some point and dig into the aliens because that's also fun.
That's a whole different ball of wax, man.
Perfect. We're going to set aside 3 hours for that one.
All right. All right.
You might need it. Carey and I have been involved with that story for 6 years, and we were going to make it into a movie, and then so much happened with those characters that we now turned it into a TV series, because it involves the Vatican, the government, cover-ups, art depictions of the 14th century. I mean,
we could go another 3 hours here, so we
forget it.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up this one. We'll plan for episode 2.
Yeah.
Round 2.
Sounds great.
But once again, thank you guys so much. And hey, if you guys on our podcast here, what are some movies? What would if nobody's ever watched one of your movies, which one would you say, hey, go watch this tonight?
The Conjuring. Yeah. I would say The Conjuring. It's only because it appeals to secular and non-secular. And if you don't go to a horror movie because you think it promotes the demons and the dark side, you are just dead wrong. We try to create genre movies that have redemptive qualities to them, where the good guy wins. And you might be pleasantly surprised in that movie. And it will open up a whole universe, too, of a bunch of different movies that you can now binge watch during the COVID-19.
Yeah.
You need something to do on a Saturday? Yeah, go watch all the movies.
Yep, this is the perfect time for that. Justin found out for himself.
Oh, that's so fun. I want to throw it back at you guys just for reaching out and bringing Carey and I in. Yeah, it's always behind the camera. The viewer should also realize that any shot you see in a movie, just behind the point of view, there's generally about 90 people standing around watching these scenes unfold. So it isn't just the screenwriters, it's the gaffer, it's everyone as everyone is a moving part, and it's like you can draw the house, you can build the house. Who builds the house? Who puts the furniture into the house? Who costumes what the people are wearing? So there's a lot to it, and I and probably Carey as well, just appreciate you guys bringing that out in the forefront, because they're not just us as screenwriters, because we get notoriety and we get all that stuff, but to all the other people who just go on from job to job to job and take it as seriously as we do, movies couldn't be made without them either. So.
It's a team effort, definitely, and creatively. But I want to say really quick, Justin, nice to see your face. Nick, awesome. I'm so excited for you and your kid. Send pictures, man. Send pictures. I got to see.
I will.
And you guys, both you, wish you the best of luck with your podcasts and your other endeavors. And it's been a complete pleasure. Hour and a half of such fun. Of course, why is it more fun? Chad and I are talking about us. So, to your listeners out there, I just hope it keeps growing, because there's so many opportunities in these podcasts. But thank you guys for reaching out to us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And anytime that you guys are in the Midwest and, after COVID, just give us a call, swing in, and we'll do this in person.
That would be
really fun.
That would be really fun. That would be great to do.
I'd love to do that.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, man. Take care. Have a great day. Happy Sunday.
Much love.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.